Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we've got a fun episode. We're making a 50-day dry-aged smoked brisket for you. And before we begin, I just got to tell you this is not a barbecue channel. If you want to check out some really good barbecue channels, check out Joe over at Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue.
Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue.
Some of you may have even heard of Troy over at T-Roy Cooks.
Hey everybody, welcome to T-Roy Cooks. I appreciate you joining.
And last but not least, you got to go visit my friend Bradley Robinson over at Chud's Barbecue.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chud's Barbecue. My name is Bradley Robinson.
I'm going to put a link to their channels in the description box below if you want to check out some of their videos on barbecue and all kinds of outdoor cooking. But for now, let's make that dry-aged brisket. First thing we need to do is prepare our choice brisket for dry aging. So I'm going to rinse it off, get rid of any excess blood that's on the surface. And if it's too moist, I'm going to blot it with a paper towel. What I'm looking for is a brisket that's damp to the touch. I don't want it too wet because we're going to be using the Sausage Maker's dry aging steak wraps, which are special plant-based wraps that are used for dry aging meat in your home refrigerator. These wraps are incredibly easy to use, but I gotta admit, they're a little on the fragile side, and if your meat is too wet, they can easily tear. So we just want a damp brisket, and we're gonna place that in the middle of our dry aging steak wraps and begin to wrap it, pressing out any air pockets. My brisket was huge, so I needed to cut a second smaller square just to make sure the entire thing was covered. But this is what our brisket looks like once it's completely covered, air pockets are squeezed out. We're gonna place it on a drying rack inside of our refrigerator for 50 days. At 50 days, we should get a really nice dry-aged flavor. And this is what it looked like 50 days later. In a minute, we're gonna trim all of our brisket, but I wanna save that trim. So I'm gonna show you a cool trick on how to remove that plant-based dry-aging steak wrap from your brisket very easily. So you can make salami, hamburgers, or sausages later on down the road. If I try to peel off this dry-aging steak wrap, you'll notice that it's incredibly papery and very brittle. It breaks very easy. I can literally fight with this all day long and still not get it off. So what I've learned is that if you run your dry-aged piece of meat under some cool water, that dry-aging steak wrap will rehydrate and literally turn into an all-natural plant-based jelly. Simply by rubbing my fingers on the meat, the dry-aged wrap comes off with no problem, and now I can save all of my trim for later use. With that out of the way, let's trim our brisket and season it. For the rub, we're going simple. 2 parts cracked black pepper, 1 part kosher salt, and a half a part of celery seed. We're gonna let that rest while we get our smoker ready. I'm gonna be using some lump coal, pecan wood, and some mesquite wood. And about 2 hours into this cook, I'll load it up because this is gonna be cooking through the entire night while I sleep. I'm also gonna place a pan of water. It's gonna keep the humidity high during this long cook. And all we gotta do now is place our briskets in our smoker and we're ready to start cooking. It's about 9 o'clock at night and we're gonna cook this low and slow. So I'm gonna set my smoker to roughly about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're gonna let it cook all night long. Tomorrow morning when I wake up, we'll give it a little check and see where it's at. I like this method of cooking a brisket because it allows me plenty of time to cook it, let it rest, and then have it ready by dinner time the following day. So this is our brisket 12 hours later. It's shrunk considerably. I've got a nice looking bark. The pepper, the salt, everything's holding in place real well. The fat's starting to render really nicely. The temperature, for those of you who are curious, is about 178, and we're going to go ahead and take it and wrap it tightly in some butcher's paper. This is going to finish up the cook. It's going to allow us to keep that nice crusty bark and retain a lot of that juicy moisture. So we're going to go ahead and take that, pop it back in the smoker, and this is where we're going to change the temperature. I'm going to raise the temperature on our Smokin' It smoker to 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is going to finish up the cook. Now, it did take about 6 more hours. We got to 203 degrees Fahrenheit. It was nice and jiggly, at which point we lowered the temperature to 155 and let it rest in that smoker for 2 hours. It's now about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Everyone's ready for dinner. And I gotta admit, it smells amazing. And it's time to see how that 50-day dry-aged smoked brisket tastes like. So how does it taste? Well, it's incredibly tender, very juicy, and it's got a nice smoky flavor. That peppery bark with the celery seeds gives it a nice touch. And couple all of that with that concentrated, beefy, cheesy, slightly funky, dry-aged flavor, you got a heck of a brisket right here. Now, it did take 52 days from start to finish, a lot of room in our fridge, so I don't know if I would do this every time I made a brisket, but on special occasions, this brisket is a winner. And that's how we made the 50-day-old dry-aged smoked brisket. If you got any questions about this project, leave them in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel, we'd like to say welcome. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. We post new videos each week. We'll see you in the next one.